I've got those peg marks in my shoulders. Do you guys ever get that when you peg out your washing? Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have another really interesting topic to share with you today, and that is going to be white saviorism. So let's get started. So in today's video we are talking all about white saviorism. This of course does come with a trigger warning, especially if you are somebody who has white privilege or white passing privilege. You may find that this is a particularly triggering topic. So once again, I just invite you to watch this video when you feel in a very open-hearted, open-minded, receptive space, because sometimes when we talk about things such as cultural appropriation or white saviorism, it can really trigger white fragility, and it can feel like a personal attack when it's actually just a space for informing and educating yourself and growing and learning. So let's just begin by defining what white saviorism is. There are of course so many fantastic resources out there where you can find definitions through authors and through theorists and all kinds of different public speakers. However, I'm just going to share my understanding, and that is that white saviorism is essentially when somebody who has white privilege or white passing privilege sees or believes, or perhaps has a subtle belief, that Black and Indigenous people of colour need help and they need the white person to be the hero of the situation and to come in and rescue them. For example, when we talk about this, we talk about aid workers and volunteers who go over to Africa. There's a really strong example of white saviorism. And I want to discuss this topic because I want to look at both sides. I want to look at how you may be coming from a completely innocent and really high vibrationally intentional space, and at the same time, it might not be being received that way, or somebody else may be perceiving it differently. White saviorism very much links to white centering and also to white exceptionalism. And if you don't know what those terms are, then I definitely recommend that you get a copy of Me and White Supremacy by Layla F Saad and read about that. That has fantastic resources for each of the terms I'll be using today. You can probably hear my dog panting in the background because it's really hot today. Come on then, come and sit with me. Okay, sit nicely. Good boy. Are you gonna sit down? Okay, so I do feel as though for some people white saviorism will very much be when a person with white privilege or white passing privilege is almost making themselves the focus, the central point. And if you feel as though you are not racist, and if you feel as though you're a good person and you treat everybody the same, maybe you're even somebody who believes that all lives matter, then that's what white exceptionalism is, and that's when you feel like, I'm not a bad person, so why should I do anti-racist work? And actually, again, educate yourself on that, because it's really important to understand everybody who possibly should be doing or should want to be doing anti-racist work. And that's why I'm making these videos as resources to share what I'm learning, and hopefully we can have a ripple effect through that. So a really strong example, as I say, of white saviorism is actually connected to missionaries or volunteers or aid workers who go to what is called in the West third world countries and offer their vision of what the people there need to do to become better or richer or happier or more educated, right? There's a lot of projection involved actually. I think this is a really good topic to start with, because if you've watched any of my previous videos, then you will know that I actually originally took my degree in international development. I wanted to be an aid worker, and I think it's really cool to share an insight around that. But for me, I wanted to become an aid worker. So you might be able to hear him growling. I originally wanted to become an aid worker for two reasons. Firstly, because I had experienced a lot of bullying and exclusion by other people, and I very much had nobody there to fight my corner, nobody who stood up for me. People would actually just walk by and allow it to happen, or witness it and do nothing, and left me to it. And I felt like I would have loved it if somebody had come in and said, don't treat her like that, don't do that to her, what you're doing is wrong. And even when I went and told teachers, the teachers would be like, oh, but you know, they're there to that person. And yeah, I don't want to center this around myself. So I just want to say, like, I was very much coming from a space of wanting to be an aid worker because I had always wished somebody had been there to support me and stand with me. Not because I was weak, I've become very resilient, I can definitely fend for myself, but because it's just nice to know that you're not alone, to know that somebody does care about you and does want to support you and can see, right, can see what's going on is wrong. So partly there was that aspect coming in, and that's actually why I want to help and why I do the work that I do anyway, because I really strongly believe that it's important to have these guides and support workers and coaches and therapists and counsellors who can actually really assist us and hold space for us on our journey. The other side of it is when I was in college and I took world development as my A-levels, I had just been so blind to everything that was going on in the world, and I was probably a bit self-involved. And I think that partly I was self-involved because I was being bullied so much. I was just so consumed by my own problems. And partly just because I didn't watch the news. So I just had no idea what was going on. I was coming from a completely clueless space. And so when I took this module for my A-levels, it just blew my mind. I had no idea what was going on in the world, and learning about, you know, maternal mortality rates, infant mortality rates, learning about all kinds of aspects of what we call poverty. And I should say that you are very much taught that poverty is a relative term, and obviously it's about having enough to look after yourself, and again that depends on what's important to you. It really is such a relative and subjective subject. That's what I learned, really. That's what I took away from my degree, how subjective it is. I felt when I came into a space of awareness that I wanted to do what I could to help. And that definitely does sound like a white saviour belief. I understand that. However, I feel there's such a fine line between just wanting to be somebody who is quite naturally quite a charitable or giving or generous or selfless person, and with being somebody who's coming from a space of, look at me, I'm doing this to help them, aren't I amazing, they couldn't cope without me. There's such a fine line, and I feel like that's something to really take away from this video, is just remembering what your intentions are and staying true to them. And other people may perceive them in a different way, but just so long as you're actually in that space and in alignment with your intentions, it should really come across that way. So that's just one example, but there are other examples of white saviorism. We see white saviorism and white centering in a lot of films, and you'll probably notice that actually if you're already doing this work, or after watching this video, you might go away and watch some films and think, oh wow, okay, so the hero is the white person, usually the white male, and okay, so these people couldn't cope and this white hero came along and saved everything. And I'm not even talking about superhero films, you know, there are just pretty much any genre of film, you can see how very much it's centered around how the people native to that land are not coping, and then you know, the white person comes in and shows them how to do it. And actually that's called a Eurocentric view. That's again something I learned in my degree, and I can actually remember when I did my degree, on one of the first modules and one of the first lectures that we had at university, there was a white male student, and he said, but why can't we just go to places like Africa and India and South America and just show them how to do it like we have done, so they can become developed like we can? And I just sat there thinking, okay, this person is obviously new to this subject, because when I did it at college we were taught that's a very Eurocentric view, very egocentric as well, to think that you can just blanket rule and collapse everything together and that your way is the right way. I think that's something else to take away from white saviorism. If you believe that your way is the right way, then you're not opening space to actually receive what that person has to say, what they need, what they want to do, what's right for them from their side. It's definitely, there's a mix of all that going on. There's an example which Layla gives in her book, which I just want to share because I think it was really interesting to me when I was reading it. But she mentioned about people with white privilege or white passing privilege who would speak on behalf of Black and Indigenous people of colour. And that's really interesting to me, because she was essentially sharing that in a way the white saviour believes they need to give a voice to the voiceless. And they come in, you know, riding on their white horse, and they're like, I can see you're in trouble, I can see things are difficult for you, you obviously need help, let me step in because I've got the answers. And that's essentially what it is, and that's what's so difficult, because you may be coming from a space where you're thinking, I've been through some really difficult things, I don't want anyone else to have to suffer or be in that space, or I know how much I would have liked it if somebody could have supported me, or I just think it's a decent thing to do as a person to support another person. And as long as you're not coming from a and they clearly need help, they couldn't cope without me space, I think that that's kind of okay. But I think you have to be really mindful, and Layla mentions in the book about, rather than being a person with white privilege and setting up a charity or an event to raise money for what you believe needs help, why don't you actually go and find black leaders or women of colour who are in charge and already run a charity or an event, and instead support them, say to them, what can I offer? Is there anything I can do? Again, not coming from a space of you wouldn't be able to do anything without me, but it is such a fine line, it really is. Please just try and ignore my dog panting, sorry about that. Yeah, it's hot, isn't it? I also think another area is around raising money, and I've seen quite a few people with links to places where you can donate. So I've seen a couple of people who have said they will donate 10% of their product sales or their client sales to, for example, the black community or Black Lives Matter, or a specific cause that they feel connected to. And whilst that's really beautiful, I can't help but think I'd rather just go to the source and actually offer them money. I saw somebody offering 10% for products sales to a particular charity, and I was thinking I'd literally rather just give the money to the charity. As lovely as your products are, I'd rather just buy your products, and I'd rather you just told me that the charity existed if I didn't know about it, or put a link to it, and I could just directly give to them. It can come across as they just want to look like a good person, and it's such a fine line, because obviously your intentions could be so pure, but again, it's just reminding yourself, are you doing it from a space of without me they would fail, or they need my help, or are you doing it from a space of I will just support because I believe in this cause? One moment please. So by all means give to charities, but see if you can actually support or offer your services to black leaders who are already doing it. And also it's important to be mindful of coming from a space where you're not looking for recognition, or you're not looking for praise or anything like that. You're just doing it from a space of it just flow naturally, to be honest with you. And you don't have to brag about it, you don't have to post on social media about it if you have donated or given or whatever, because that's white centering. That's something that's really important, is looking at how hand in hand white centering, white saviorism, tokenism and optical allyship just come together, obviously in white exceptionalism. They just kind of feed one another like some great big cycle. So you'd have white saviorism coming down to white centering, coming down to tokenism, up to optical allyship, putting in a bit of white exceptionalism, back to white saviorism. And it's like an unhealthy perpetuation of white supremacy, and that's why it's important to understand that. So again, I'm still learning about this. I'm still trying to understand how I can stay true to my beliefs, which is that I never want anybody to feel as though they don't have support. I would always love to be there to be, even just be the backup, you know. And that's where I come from, you know. I've been there, I've been alone. I wish somebody had been there, even just to stand next to me, even in silence, just stand next to me. But I would definitely recommend doing some more research into this if you are somebody with white privilege or white passing privilege, and just asking yourself, what are your intentions behind why you're offering help, or why you're trying to raise money, or why you're looking to center around yourself, really. As long as you can make the focus the people you're connecting with and working with and or helping. I mean, I'm really conscious of language as I'm making this video, because it's so easy to be misconstrued, and I feel like terms such as coach and help and aid and guidance have become something different to what they used to really mean. So I'm just saying help as in, you know, like being there for another human being and offering your services. And when I say services, I just mean your love, your compassion, your focus, your organization, whatever it may be. You know, again, it's a really complicated topic, but just notice that cycle of awareness. I think that's a really good place to start, actually, because then you can say to yourself, okay, if I do this action, is that connected to tokenizing? Is it connected to optical allyship? Is it connected to white saviorism? Will I be lending myself to white centering? And again, it's just, oh my gosh, it's such a mad complicated topic. So I just want to bring it through as a kind of awareness thing today, because I think this is going to be something that you need to go within, meditate on, and look into your intentions. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to this, and making sure that you are not the focus, if you are somebody with white privilege or white passing privilege, but making sure that Black and Indigenous people of colour or women of colour, if you work more with women, are your focus and what you're really putting your efforts towards making the narrative as opposed to you being the narrative. And I'd really recommend the journal prompts in this book for the White Saviourism chapter. It's really, really good. I think there's about 6 journal prompts, so that's a really good place to start, to look at your intentions, look at your beliefs, look at the narratives that you have, and then move from a space of decentering your whiteness and removing the hero or the saviorism aspect to what it is that you're doing when it comes to your anti-racist work. So I hope that you've enjoyed just the introduction to white saviorism. Of course, as I learn more, I will share more of these videos, but if you have any resources you'd like to share, then please do let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in next week's video.